YouTube Lokaya Nama. Now, let me show you how to read a birth chart as an overview of the whole process, and let's use the most important example chart, just a chart of right now, what's going on right now. So when you read a chart, conceptualize it in 4 different stages. The 4 segments are, first of all, the calculations, second of all, the background, third of all, the specific interpretations, and fourth of all, the synthesis of everything. When I give my complete chart assessment, I break it into these 4 categories, although the 4th category is impossible to do on paper, right? The 4th category is something that I do for you in the astrological guidance reading, or in the guided tour reading, or with the birth chart assessment report. I encourage you to do it, and I show you where to do it. So for most people, the calculations are just done for you by computers. So that's not too terribly important, although there's questions like what kind of zodiac should we use, what kind of Navaṁśa should we use, which point should we use, what kind of house system should we use. So let's just pretend that that's all taken care of and you're totally agreed on what system of calculation you're going to use, so we're not going to go there. Let's start with the second step. This is like if you're drawing a picture, you don't put really hard lines down right away and exactly draw the figure. You sort of sketch around a bit, and then you start to get exactly the shapes that you want. Or you can think of it like meeting a person. When you meet a person, you get first impressions, and then later on you clarify and refine and confirm and change your first impressions. So when you open up a chart and look at it, you need to know, how do I get my accurate first impressions? How do I get my initial sketch? How do I get my initial shape of the whole range of things that this type of a chart could represent? If you don't do it this way, it's like trying to find a seat without finding a theater. First know what ballpark or what theater you're going to, then know the seat number. Because if you just know the seat number, there's too many possibilities of where it could go. And if you just know the ballpark, it's also too many possibilities of where it could go. But you need to do them in a certain order. You need to know the general area first and then the specifics. So where do you go in a chart to look for this general area? I break it into 2 categories. The first category is these things connected with the ascendant and the moon. And the second category is getting overall tallies of things and overall pictures of things. I would start by looking at this version of the chart, which shows the nakshatras really clearly and also gives you a geometric sense of where the planets are. So we got Bharani ascending. So what you want to do is put Bharani into your thoughts, put it onto your palette, your color palette. What kind of things does Bharani represent? So of course what I do for you in the birth chart assessment is give you, all that information. This is what this thing represents. This is what Bharani represents. This is what Mrigashirsha represents. This is what Jupiter represents. This is what the first house represents. But just to review, Bharani is Yama's nakshatra. So it has to do with discipline, responsibility, hard work. So this appears to be a moment for discipline and responsibility and hard work. That can go a million different directions, right? That can go into somebody who's dutifully doing their duties. It can go into somebody who's feeling totally depressed and suffocated. It can go all kinds of different directions. We don't know yet. That's the whole point of getting the soft focus first. But we have some general ballpark of where we're going with this now. Now combine that Bharani ascending nakshatra with the moon's nakshatra, Mrigashirsha. Moon in Mrigashirsha, what is Mrigashirsha all about? Mrigashirsha is gentle. As it says in the Taittiriya Brahmana's Nakshatra Sutra, Vittani Parastat and Vayantaha Avastat. So that means what Mrigashirsha wants to do is to reach out to many people, reach out to many diverse groups, reach out and become merged into, blend into a lot of different groups. Why? Vayantaha, so that it can braid things together and make a rope, make something stronger by having many different things mixed together. So it's kind of funny because this is my Muhurta chart right now. This is my Prashna chart right now. This is my moment right now, as I'm recording the video, it's kind of funny. I'm doing my responsibility of making YouTube videos for you guys. I'd rather be probably hanging out with my kids. And what is that responsibility? It's Mrigashirsha, to reach out to people and bring ideas together. Become stronger as a result of having contact with more people. Barney and Mrigashirsha, they're a little bit clashed. Mrigashirsha, reaches out to a lot of people, but Barney is very strict. Barney is very tough and disciplined and doesn't give any leeway to the rules and the truth. It holds people to the truth. It's Yama. It's the judge of your deeds after death. So that's also my problem, right? Everybody knows that from all my YouTube videos, is that I just take the truth and put it on the end of a hammer and hit you over the head with it. So that's another interesting little interpretation that comes out. So we get what you want to do is combine things. Barney, Mrigashirsha, what do they have in common? Okay. What do they have? Where do they clash? Okay, they clash when this person is not really so good at blending out into a lot of people. Or there's going to be a real effort. It's going to be a Barney for them to learn how to blend out into a lot of people so that they can bring a lot of people together. So you get that, and you put that on your background, like, this is what this chart is about. It has to do with that. It's not a specific interpretation yet, but it's a background upon which you can, it's the ballpark in which you can find your seat. It's the background upon which you can pull out your interpretations later when you get to specifics. Okay, the next thing that I do is look at the Ascendant Rashi. Currently, right here, where I am right now, that's Taurus. So Taurus Rashi has a certain nature to it. It's Venus. Right? So Venus is love, femininity. Venus reaches out to other people. That has to do with Mrigashirsha, right? That's compatible with Mrigashirsha. Mrigashirsha likes to reach out with people. Your things that you've already pulled up, these are the background things. Keep them in mind. Always go back and refer to them. Oh, Taurus, that gets along pretty well with Mrigashirsha. But again, the Venus part of Taurus gets along with Mrigashirsha because Venus likes to partner. But the earth and stability, fixedness of Taurus doesn't really get along with Mrigashirsha, because Mrigashirsha likes to move around, likes to be dual, actually, move out, move around. So that on that part's clashing. And that's saying the exact same thing that Barney says when it clashes with Mrigashirsha, because Barney is very strict and strong, and Mrigashirsha likes to move, likes to be flexible. When you find the exact same interpretation from another angle, then you think, aha, this is where it's going. This is what it's saying. If somebody tells you a story, and a lot of parts of the story change every time they tell you it, but there's parts of the story that never change, then those are probably the parts of the story that were really, really important and true. Same way when you read a chart, the planets tell you lots of different things. The stars, the signs tell you lots of different things. But when there's things that they constantly tell you each time from each planet that you talk to, then you know, aha, this must be the truth. Okay, so the Taurus ascendant makes its confirmations of the Mrigashirsha Barney dynamic. But another thing to do is go and look at Navamsha. Which part of Taurus, which Navamsha of Taurus is rising? So what's rising right now is the Gemini Amsha, the Gemini Navamsha of Taurus. It's the Gemini segment of Taurus. And what's happening right now is not the Leo segment, not the Cancer segment, not the Taurus segment, not the Aries segment, but the Gemini segment of Taurus. So that has its own specific nature. It's different from the other segments of Taurus. So the Gemini segment of Taurus is using Gemini's communicative abilities to accomplish the goals of Taurus, which are to partner, to join, right? But also to prosper, to improve myself. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to prosper, right? I want to build my YouTube channel and all that stuff by communicating. So it's a very good time to do that. If this is a chart of a person, you would expect, oh, this person can be a really good talker. This person could be a good communicator. This person is probably good with communicating feelings and ideas. So they're probably good with relationships. They're probably good with friendships, partnerships, marriages, business relationships, all sorts of things like that. Nonetheless, that Barney Nakshatra is there. So they're a strict person. They're a serious person. They're a serious person, but likable. Okay, the next thing that you'd want to do is look at the tallies, look at the overviews. There's certain yogas recorded in the tradition of Vedic astrology that are designed to help you get your first impression of a chart. And those are mostly the yogas of tallying. You count up things. So you want to look at a couple of the tallies and see what's going on. Just to let you know, there's things like count all the signs that are occupied by the planets, depending on the number. Forget about Rahu Ketu. Depending on the number from 1 to 7. There's a different fundamental background interpretation to add into your first impression of the chart. Another thing you can do is count the nakshatra types, the 6 types of nakshatras. Another thing you can do is count the signs elements. Now the most important tally to do is to do Shadbala calculation to see how strong every planet is, and then modify that Shadbala by how that planet aligns with the key points in the chart so that you can tell which planet is the most prominent. Okay, I did a whole video about that earlier in this playlist. And the second most important calculation to do is calculate the dignity of the planet throughout all of its Vargas, or throughout a rather large set of Vargas. And I did a video on that as well earlier in this playlist. So by doing both of those calculations, you can come up with a graph like this one that I give you in the birth chart assessment and all the readings that I do for people. It's just the most important graph of the chart. And this would show Jupiter as being the most important planet right now. And none of the planets have any kind of crucially bad dignity. In fact, some of the planets are really quite well dignified. Mars is well dignified, 63% dignity. Venus is well dignified with a 64% dignity. Saturn is well dignified with 60. Jupiter, the most important planet, is doing pretty well with a 54% dignity. So the sky looks good right now. The time for doing things is good right now. And it's particularly good for Jupiter. Well, what does Jupiter have to do with anything? Well, first get your idea of what Jupiter is. Jupiter is about wisdom, morals, guidance on how to grow and prosper. That's what Jupiter is about, by the way. It's not about religion. But religion is one of the ways that we get guidance and morals and learn how to prosper. Jupiter is about prospering. It's not a spiritual planet, but it's a good planet. It can be a spiritual planet if it's mixed up with spiritual things like Ketu or the 12th house or the 8th house or something like that. But anyway, that's my pet peeve, because I'm getting frustrated with people saying that Jupiter is some superhero of spirituality and Venus is some materialistic thing. It's completely untrue. But anyway, here we go. We have Jupiter as the most prominent planet right now. So Jupiter is about guidance and everything. You got Taurus rising with the Gemini Navamsha of Taurus rising, and Jupiter is the most important planet. Jupiter being the most important planet means that this is a great time, not just for communicating about any old thing, but communicating about some significant knowledge, some significant guidance. So that's also exactly what we're doing right now, isn't it? But to be totally honest with you, I feel my explanation muscles are getting tired at this point. And if my explanation muscles are getting tired right now, then your listening muscles must also be reaching the limit of what they can absorb. So let's pretty much wind it up here and put a to be continued across the bottom of the screen. So what we'll do is, what you would want to do next is look at Jupiter in more detail. Okay, Jupiter is the most prominent planet. What nakshatra is Jupiter in? That's super important. We got some information just by the basic nature of Jupiter being the guide and the wisdom giver and moral principle and all that stuff. But we can get a lot more than that if we look at Jupiter's nakshatra, sign, house, lordships, the aspects or conjunctions that Jupiter has, etc., etc. Let's do that in our next video. I promise. So we'll stop it here, actually, because my battery's running out too. Thank you very much. See you next week.